appreciate all the work that you do, and you have an important message for us today. And we're also, for everybody's reference, the climatologist, Professor Leslie Dupigny-Giroux, did I say that correct, is going to make a little brief appearance here because she's in the building getting introduced and she was testifying. But take it away, Peter.
Thank you so much for having me here today. So here to talk about net metering, which is the way that we in Vermont have chosen to make it affordable for Vermonters to go solar at home, in their backyard, or in businesses, things like that. And the Department of Public Service has just released a recommendation that would make it not only would really add to the problems the Trump administration's caused to try to go solar at home. So the next slide, just a little overview.
Thank you, Jordan.
The budget bill, which I don't want to call it the big bad bill, ended the 30% tax credit that had been around for a couple of decades. So the price in theory went up, for solar at home by 30%. By statute, every 2 years, the PUC must update the net metering compensation rate. And every update since 2018 has made it more difficult for Vermonters to net meter by increasing what's called the negative adjusters. Increasing or decreasing these adjusters for electric rates is the main way the PUC can impact the deployment of net meter solar. And I'll go into that in a future slide. But the bottom line is, when you move these, the PUC moves adjusters up or down, you can either have more net meter solar or less. And every year since 2017, they have chosen to make it harder to go solar at home. On April 1st, the department released its recommendation.
Peter, can I interrupt you just
Yep.
real quick? Just in case there's someone watching on live or who's not familiar. When you look at your electric bill, if I'm a solar homeowner in this situation,
Yep.
I would see less per kilowatt hour for my solar that I'm generating. That's what that means with the negative adder. Like I would.
If you're
on my-
new solar, it's for new solar owners.
Okay.
So once you go solar at home, your rate is locked in for 10 years, generally speaking, and then it can be changed. So in general, if you've invested in solar, but this is what we're gonna go into.
Right.
So on April 1st, the Public Service Department released its recommendation to the Public Utility Commission, which it's supposed to do for the 2026 rate update, and it's bad both for existing net metering customers and for those who want to go solar in the future. The PUC will make its decision by June 1st on this rate, which will cover the next 2 years. So next slide, please, Jordan. And this is the stuff I've been talking about. That slide on the left goes back to the first biennial update in 2018, and you can see corresponding to the yellow bars on the right there, every time those adjusters, the block goes down from positive 4 cents now to negative 4 cents, an 8-cent swing since 2017, the number of people, the amount of net meters we have goes down too, right? And it's really, really not that cool. And you can see the chart below, in 2023, Vermonters put up about 2,300 of these net metering systems. Now in 2025, they down to about 1,600.
Wow.
And these are all arrays that are either on someone's roof, in their backyard, over a parking lot, the places we really want to see solar, which is in the built environment, right? We all get it. Some stuff has to be built in the fields and all that. But all of us would say the more solar we put up on a big box store or a parking lot, the better. Okay. So next slide, here's the super confusing part. And feel free to ask questions. Having a basic understanding of how net metering is compensated is, I think, kind of fundamental to understanding the harshness of what the Department of Public Service is doing to throttle home solar here in Vermont. The power net metering customer generates generally falls into 2 buckets. What you use on your own, meaning behind the meter, in real time, like your laptop's on, the sun's shining, the power goes from your solar panel through the inverter, into your house, and you power your laptop. Great. And then there's excess generation, which is the stuff you don't, you're sending back to the grid at the end of the month for all intents and purposes. 2 kinds of power, own use and excess generation. Okay. So for example, it's important to understand that anyone who's invested in a community solar array, that is all considered excess generation because none of it's used on site, right? So if you've invested, or if you're a municipality that has an off-site 250 kW or a school, and something that's not directly tied to your building, all that's considered excess generation is compensated at the blended rate, which is what the department is saying we have to cut. So all those folks who've invested in community solar or municipality school districts, things like that, they're about to get a massive haircut if the department's recommendation is implemented.
And Peter, since you've taken a pause, our state climatologists have arrived.
Want me to jump?
No, well,
Would you like to eat your lunch and then talk afterwards?
The fire drill.
Don't worry, come join us, yeah. We're listening to Peter, and then we'll give you a moment unless you have to have a time constraint.
1 o'clock.
Great, okay, perfect.
And we'll get you out of here in time because I know that there's going to be an introduction on the floor, right?
So just give a little background, something you may be saying, well, why would the Department of Public Service, why would they be proposing to make it so much harder to net meter? They say that there's a cost shift, meaning Peter Sterling, who net meters, is getting a higher rate of electricity than you can buy on the open market. And that is unfair to every other customer. But let me just give you a couple bits of perspective on that. New net metering in 2025 added under 30 cents a month generally for all utilities in the state of Vermont. So that you're talking this whole cost shift concept for almost every utility was under 30 cents a month for your average customer. But wait, 80% of that 30%, 80% of this supposed cost shift number comes from what the department says are lost sales, meaning that is the money that a utility loses by not selling any power that I generated on my own. That is nonsense.
Yeah.
That is a big number. That means if I go out and buy an energy efficient refrigerator,
Yeah, that's a loss.
which I now, that's a lost sale to the utility. If we decide to conserve energy in this room, turn off the lights, lost sale. So any kind of conservation program or any kind of efficiency, that's now a lost sale, but somehow that no one talks about, that isn't applied to that calculation. It's only to net metering where there's somehow this given right for utility to sell everyone power, and it's kind of as a negative that a Vermonter generates and uses their own power. So when you hear about a cost shift, which it certainly does exist in a very small amount, it always includes a massive number for a utility lost sale to each individual customer because they have generated power on their own. That clears mud. I think that's a super important concept because many of you will go out and hear from some people about this cost shift, why are you raising my bill, all that stuff. But most of that number, I think we can have a very legitimate policy debate over whether it's an actual number, whether you should really be counting lost sale as a penalty against Vermonters who want to go solar. Any questions about that?
So,
Yeah. Okay.
sorry.
No.
Did I understand you to say 30 cent cost shift average across all utilities for,
Exactly correct.
for solar that came on?
In 2024, 25, and 26. New net metering in this 2.6 vintage.
And, do you know what the calculation is for all the net metering of the cost shift, both the way they're calculating it and the way you described?
No.
More accurate?
No one's ever done that. We can try to find that out. It's a tricky number, but I can try to find it out. The only thing that I would caution about that number is, well, there's a lot of things I would caution about that number. First, the lost sale part, but the biggest one is when a lot of this solar came on, 2013, 14, 15, 16, the peak was in the afternoon, right? And we were avoiding those peaks, and that had enormous benefits to ratepayers. When you buy peak power, you're sometimes talking like, pushing like $1,000 a megawatt hour versus, what you could buy for, or whatever. I mean, it's like 10x during peak. So when you move the peak, which solar did, there was enormous value to ratepayers, which our Department of Public Service has never calculated as a benefit of all that vintage net metering. They only talk about the big number, which is this cost shift. So I would actually, if we can request that from the Department of Public Service, which you can do, I would ask for also the savings from all that vintage net metering, because the number on the cost shift number alone looks really scary. But it doesn't include the benefits. Not to mention social cost of carbon, all that other good stuff, which is accounted for exactly zero.
And those local jobs and all that other. good
Even if
stuff.
you don't care about it just as a pure rate issue, it doesn't talk about social cost of carbon and so many other things. So we can try to find that number out, Representative, but it has to come in context, I believe. Could we do the next slide? Okay, here's the
Do you
meat
mind?
on the bones.
We did have
Oh,
one other
I'm sorry.
question.
Yeah,
sorry.
thanks for doing this again. Our church and our town,
I know that their projects not only will turn, maybe a meter backwards, some of the excess is offloaded to other meters
Yeah.
in town or at our church. Are those considered to be excess?
That's a different part of the formula. What you're doing there is you're actually sharing your bill credits.
Yes,
Mm.
So that, let's say your church has the 250,
yeah,
they generate a whole bunch of bill credits, the church isn't using all of it. So you're legally allowed to share those bill credits with another operator in that same
Right.
coverage, so that is not part of the calculation.
okay, all right,
But because there will now be less bill credits,
yeah, yeah,
they will not be able to share as many, which means the same thing will effectively happen is all those people who get bill credits, their bills will now go up,
right.
because they're getting it.
And so when I convince the church to take some of their saved money,
Yeah.
do this project and penciled it out, and it's gonna be paid for in just another year or two,
No,
now it's gonna go longer.
way
Or I know long, going
Yes,
in
that's
forward.
exactly
Yeah.
right. That's why this is such a bad policy.
Same with the town.
Same with the town, same with any residential.
Yeah.
house. So this is the nuts and bolts of what the Department of Public Service recommended to the PUC. And again, our hope is to get the PUC to reject it. So as you can see from the three lines there, the utilities residential rate has increased, yearly, mostly along the lines of inflation, despite what you may hear, Vermont has rates in New England, and our utilities generally go up with inflation, not maybe a little bit above, but not much. The value of the net metering credits through this blended rate has generally been increasing with, that was the promise that was made. And when people took out a loan or had figured that payback period, they did that bottom line, which is the cost of their subscription or for community solar or up to their lease payment. What the Department of Public Service is saying for the first time ever, that dotted red line has to happen. We have to cut that blended rate from increasing, which means the promise Vermonters had, or the understanding they had of how their compensation for their net metering would increase as their utility rates increase, because the solar is more valuable to the utility. That red delta is the thing that would put community solar underwater, would extend homeowners' lot, payback periods and all that. And here's the kicker, and I can go into the weeds, but the department estimates the annual savings from that red triangle will be $8 million out of the over $1 billion Vermont could spend on electricity every year. So 8 million sounds like a lot, but if you put that up to the average ratepayer, that's 10 cents a month. So for 10 cents a month savings to your average ratepayer, we are gonna put 20,000 Vermonters who've invested in solar potentially, I don't wanna say underwater, but in a much more difficult financial situation. To me, that is very unwise policy decision. And I hope everyone at this table can take a moment to email the PUC, tell them not to do it. And that's pretty much the end of my proposal. We can go to the last slide if you're gonna have this up. But what I would say is, we are very lucky in the legislature to have two incredible leaders of our energy committees. We have Pat James and Ann Watson, who've done.
She's in the back, she's in the back.
They took a lot of great testimony in this, and it was a very difficult issue to solve this year in this moment. I do think there's a legislative solution ultimately that can be achieved to make this better. Even if this part doesn't happen and something else happens with net metering, I think ultimately the legislature, who used to have the authority to set net metering rates, can take part of that back from the PUC. Maybe for next year, but I don't want anything to be implied here that this is the legislature's problem. The governor created this, he ought to fix it. And this is not something that should be dumped down the laps of the legislature to fix, 2 months before adjournment. It is not due to any kind of lack of leadership in our energy.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
You're welcome to ask a question. I do just want to know, if you did not get the email that included the sample that Peter wrote and that link to just do it, if you want, I'll send it to you. If folks want it, I'll send it out.
And it is important for people to write. And my question is we need to get out also in op-eds or whatever about what this is happening. Because I think a lot of people are going to be completely clueless, and to think about going back on a promise. If you invest in solar, this is what you're going to get. And then to find out that you're not, I mean, it's really like a breach of contract sort of kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, going back in apartment. So Phil,
I was just gonna sort of expand on that. I mentioned my church, my town, me personally. You know, these were sort of business decisions, whether you're a homeowner or not. And if the state is gonna go back on this sort of expectation and sort of contract, what does it mean to all the businesses? And what will the state do to any business that's come here or doing business? And now they're gonna change the rules. Just unfair.
One more comment, and we heard, so this is about residential solar, mostly, smaller, under 50 kW. We heard from multiple folks who are members of REV who do the bigger projects, the 1 to 5 megawatts, that with unequivocally, this will raise the rates that they have to charge to build those 1 to 5 megawatts, because now no lender is gonna trust the state of Vermont. They're gonna charge higher interest rates for all the big ones, which we need. That's the fastest, kind of cheapest way to get power these days, unless you can snap your fingers and like build a nuclear power plant. So because it's going to raise the rates on the rest of the power we're building, because no one's gonna believe the state of Vermont will be by its word, this is going to raise rates in more than one way, even for the other stuff we're building here in Vermont. I mean, that is exactly the wrong way to go. This is the opposite way of affordability.
That's me, I think.
One question I have from kind of a political standpoint is because the conversation has been so heavily focused on school affordability and how I pay for school, I'm curious if there is a way to calculate or estimate what the additional cost would be for school energy bill.
Well, I haven't, if you're a school that has, well, Colchester's, they're an example, they've contracted for a 500 kW offsite. We estimate that would be about $30,000 loss over 2 years. So
Yeah.
You're a school that contracted for a 250, not probably half, something near half that, so it's not nothing.
Yeah, it's not interesting.
So here, Energy and Digital Infrastructure will be taking testimony on this. We just penciled it in for Thursday morning.
Oh, great.
So looking forward to hearing from you and the department and the commission.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'm around to answer questions. So Jonathan Dowd, Deputy Director, another expert on net metering, will hang out, so can you ask questions?
And I think Ben was going to give a
Oh, better. There you go.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. We really appreciate your work. And then we will have our state climate college after this.
almost through with your lunch.
Actually, that's kind of for, I'll be brief. I almost said for the record.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but this is casual, climate caucus.
Off the record, Bennett, well, deeper, I was asked a couple of weeks ago to talk a little bit about the history of net metering and sort of where we came from and how we got here. Obviously, since then, you've had the opportunity to have our state climatologist come in. So I will just be brief and say a couple of things about the late 90s and early 2000s and a couple of things about how where we are now. So the net metering program was created in 1998 in Vermont. And from its inception was essentially a one-to-one program. Every kilowatt hour you produced offset 1 kilowatt hour that you used. And so essentially you were not literally getting paid, but you were getting compensated at the retail rate. So if retail rates went up a little bit, you got a little bit more compensation in practical terms for the renewable electricity that you were producing. And that was by design, and it has been, and I'll get to how that has shifted, but that basic principle of you build one of these things and you know it is in some way going to be tethered to the retail rate of electricity. So as your costs go up, you also see increased compensation, has been true for the entire 29 or so year history of this program. In 2014, Vermont passed a law handing over authority to the PUC to design and update periodically the program. And that was done basically because the legislature had been at that point updating it almost annually in the late 2000s into the 2010s, and that was sort of seen as a kind of a bit much. And in doing that handoff, the PUC and its rules adopted that same kind of a principle, the rate floating with the retail rate. It's now the blended retail rate, which you just heard a lot about from Peter. But the principle of your costs go up, your compensation goes up in turn remaining. And everyone who has gone solar at any point in the history of the net metering program understood that those were the rules of the road that they were playing under and they were not supposed to change. And so what's happening now really is entirely ahistorical and I would argue pretty outrageous, especially, and that's very briefly the other thing I wanted to say, as the tax credit, the federal level for solar has gone away, that investment tax credit was enacted in 2005 under noted climate champion President George W. Bush. And has been updated and expanded 4 times, every time bipartisan in DC. And now that renewables are really getting traction and are a threat to the fossil fuel industry, Trump and his compatriots in DC have decided that it needs to go and obviously have repealed that tax credit. And so the cost of going solar in practical terms went up 30% from December 31st of last year to January 1st this year, if you're a residential customer. And so the idea that the Scott administration is in this moment choosing to say, let's throw 29 years of history out the window, right as it got dramatically harder to go solar for Vermont households, it just simply is unconscionable from our standpoint. I really appreciate you taking time on this, submitting any comments you feel you should. It's very easy when you pass laws that go across the street to the PUC to just let that process play out and not pay attention to it in the building. And I appreciate you not doing that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you.
Okay, now we would like to introduce.
Like to sit over there.
Say that. Yeah, would you like, maybe, I think you should be here. Oh, that'd be good.
Just, do you know the chairs, the co-chairs? This is
We've
Senator
agreed
Becca
that.
White
Yep.
and Representative Mulliver.
Nice to meet you. I attended a webinar that you did, but that was a webinar, but I did ask a question of you at the time.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah, thanks, Rita, yeah.
So, we are very
We're super honored.
honored to have our state climatologist here, and, I guess that we would like to ask you to, we still have like 20 minutes.
How long does it take to go?
Yeah, whatever you think would be, completely, there's so much going on and there's so much, difficulty around the issue, but we'd like you to express what you'd like to say to the Climate Caucus.
So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here. For me, inclusion and inclusivity is important. That's why I'm looking around at everybody. And for those of you who I already know, good to see you again. I'm not gonna call you out by name because then you'll know who I know. For me, it's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be here, right in here. I have never spoken to the Climate Caucus.
Yeah,
That's
that's a miss on our
That's a
part,
miss.
that's on us.
this needs to happen
Yeah.
here. So we're gonna-
Not just maybe for blame or anything. I think the biggest thing that I could say, and Bram will back me up on this, is being on the Climate Council has been eye-opening, in the sense of just learning how everything works. And as a scientist, I'm usually in a little box somewhere, just doing my little stuff and, making sure I'm asking the right questions. So whatever I do actually is gonna get used by people. But I think being in the middle of seeing how the other term for sausage is being made, like, seeing how that actually works and all of the processes it's eye-opening because I can bring it into my classes and have my students learn about how the state government works, right? And I could also, and this is the best part for me, somebody called me a connector. I do a lot of networking and I always know who to connect people with. I think this is the biggest part for me, to be in a space like this and to learn who's doing what, so that next time something else comes up, I can say, well, you need to talk to this person or that person, right? And so that's critically important for me. So I have been state climatologist for 29 and a half years. And come the 1st of July, I'm gonna be the longest serving state climatologist in the nation. So I was thinking we should have a party.
Not a bad idea.
So Rita's already doing the resolutions. Yeah, but no, seriously, I think it's been, you use your power for good, right? And so to the point that you can get folks to the table who are not currently at the table, that for me is the biggest win. Also to make sure that everybody is being heard, because there are so many folks, not just around the state, not just, in different levels or whatever, whose voices are not heard. And so to the extent that I can use my positionality to actually assist with that is critically important. Now, that said, and having done this for almost 3 decades, I'm still a one-person shop. So there's only this much that I can do. But if I had more people, I could be doing this much more, right? And so I think moving forward, if there are ways of trying to provide assistance to the state climatologist office, whether that is like student legislative help or an assistant state climatologist or commissioning a study or anything else like that, that could be something that's needed, and let's move the needle forward, right? Because it's great to go and give talks all over the place, but if you have a captive audience, that's the whole state, then that puts you in a different category, right? So if there's anything that could and should be done, that's one thing that I want to kind of just put on the collective floor here, right? I know I had met Sarita when she was on the Colchester Select Board. Planning board. I am still learning how many boards.
It's okay.
No, because that for me is an important piece to know how all of the plans fit together and why there's a capacity issue at the town level and how can I assist with that. And so that's a great way where students can come in and actually do some work that could be done, right? So for me, it has to be a win-win-win-win-win. And how do I do this as efficiently and efficaciously as possible? So I don't have prepared remarks.
No.
But that was kind of like what I wanted to get out there. And I always love to know who's in the room.
Yeah.
So would you mind just going around and say who you are and where you're with or?
Yeah, sure. Well, and I'll just say, so the Climate Solutions Caucus, just so you have a little introduction to us. We are a nonpartisan group. So we have all different stripes. And we are I think, other than the party caucus, we're the longest existing caucus at this point, other than the Sportsman's Caucus. They outlast us. And we try to have a House and a Senate co-chair to facilitate that kind of cross-informational work. We put out our priorities at the beginning of last year, which was largely to hold the line on a lot of climate policies. And then this year we spearheaded a number of different bills, kind of tried to shepherd them through the process. So I know that you don't advocate for specific pieces of legislation or back any candidate or any caucus, but it did, we had a conversation in our climate leadership meeting before this, saying that we do really want to hear more from the climatologists. And it seems like we're missing a little bit of that science-driven information. And we want to facilitate as much as possible, you being in the building, being present, or having like a nexus to communicate important information to us. So we do want to open that up to you where it's appropriate with your kind of
Schedule too.
So the one thing that I would push for, I mentioned this in last testimony on the 20th of March, is I would push for a drought response act.
Drought response. Yes.
Because we cannot get caught with our socks down.
Ann Watson is behind you saying yes. But you did want to meet us, so I don't know if we want to do introductions or just.
Yeah, we could go around where people are from. And I guess before I do that, I'd like to ask you the question, we have people in this building who don't even think about climate and don't even care about it or dismiss it. And that's a difficult thing. And how to bring people along to the science of what's happening, to the emergency of what's happening. And, I think certainly the floods and the drought and the wildfire smoke have all contributed to people's, maybe there is something happening, but I'm sure you encounter that too in your professional life. So just wanted to.
Yeah.
Any.
And for me, it's all about a conversation because I need to talk to everybody. And so when I show up, I'm like, hi, Leslie Ann, talk to me. Because that is the way you actually start getting dialogue with folks, right? And there's no prejudging, there's no whatever, there's just two people having a talk, having a conversation, and that that allows me to kind of understand where folks are sitting and then find something that resonates so that we can actually really dialogue. And so people always ask me that, and they always ask me what gives me hope. And for me, the other thing that gives me hope, this is not being recorded, right?
It is being recorded. It is, unfortunately, just want you to know, it is being recorded. Maybe offline later, we'll hear what gives her hope. Well, you met us, but I will say too, my right, I'm gonna start Scott. I'm just
Sure.
saying.
So I'm Scott Campbell, representative from St. Johnsbury. I don't know, I've been on 3 or 4 different committees, and we've had you in before, and it's great to see you again. Thank you for coming and joining us.
We should have.
Are we going this way?
Evelyn and
Okay.
Jordan, very important.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Seidner. I work for the Vermont Natural Resources Council. I'm Jordan Hayden. I'm the campaign director with BEPR, the Vermont Public Interest Research Group.
So they are very important to the Climate Caucus. And Evelyn was an intern with the UVM internship program. And I was just thinking about that we should sort of try to connect the, Liz Radek, who runs that program. It's a program that puts students with legislators to come and work on policy. So I think I'm going to talk to Liz about that too, that,
You would love that.
yeah. Anyway, so why don't we go around that way?
John Brookfield, you represent Parliament, Windsor and West Windsor, and I'm on the House Agriculture, Food Resiliency and Forestry Committee, and last year was on environment. I'm also one of the union trustees.
Do you know Windsor has the highest vulnerability in terms of a lot of natural hazards?
In terms
Windsor,
of
a lot of natural hazards.
I'm easy to find.
Hi, I'm Sue Willing, environmental advocate, also with the party.
Just really good line. College Town is also a good line, good month, once upon a time, UVM Education Research Center, looking all that.
Leslie Ann, Joanna Miller, the Climate Council, we know each other, so appreciate you.
Not a problem, likewise.
Oh, I'm Bob Galman. I work as a volunteer coordinator with the Vermont chapters of the Sierra Club.
Brian Stoll, Energy Program Manager with Buildings and Mineral Services.
Hold on a second.
Ann Watson, Senator of the Washington District and Chair of the Energy Resources and Energy. Good to see you.
This is Paul Walker, I intern for Senator McCoy.
Whoop, whoop, UVM. It spells great. Yeah. Have any jobs?
Hi, I'm Emma Watley. I am also tutoring with Representative Spike.
David Durfee, I chair the House Agriculture Committee, and I'm from Shasbury. Wanted to just mention that you said drought response, and we did pass S60, which is a farm relief bill for not just drought, but any sort of climate related problems. And we're hoping that might be funded.
It's almost contingent. Almost an hour,
What's it?
Shaftesbury Museum. It's an awesome diaries from the 1800s.
Oh, really? Be interesting to see.
Hi there, I'm Esme Cole. I'm the rep for Hartford, White River Junction, and I'm on my town's energy commission, and I'm the Committee on Human Services. I was on agriculture too before. Nice to meet you.
Christian Morris, representing the metropolis of Springfield, Vermont, and North Springfield, and I'm on the environment committee.
So you just know.
Hi, Karen Peters. I can't wait for you to tell me about my 4 towns.
No pressure.
Lincoln, Starksboro, Bristol, and Moncton. So I'm Addison 4 on the western slopes of the Billings. And And I'm on the healthcare committee.
Yeah, and you were in bullseye in the drug last year.
Yes, we were.
Exactly.
Well, went dry for about 2.5 months.
You know this gentleman.
Graham Klubner. Since we last served together on the climate council, I have been elected to this august body. Required that I resign my seat on the climate council to join here. To my delight, signed for the energy committee.
Which one?
House,
Got it.
energy and digital zoning.
I'm Rep. Austin. I know you, but I wanted to just let people know the reason Dr. Drew is here is because I have had a resolution written for her because she's won the very prestigious award. It's a very competitive international and national award. It's called the Monty Blahnik Award. So we're gonna have a resolution read. And we should be very proud. I mean, I've always proud.
Yeah.
Phil Pouch, rep from Heinsberg on the House Transportation Committee. And I'm very proud that in undergraduate school in the 70s, I had a minor in what was called alternative energy before we even knew climate change was happening.
No
yeah.
competition here, just happy to hear it occurring.
Yeah.
I'm Dara Torrey. I'm a representative from the Mad River Valley watershed towns. And I've heard you speak in a number of venues and always been delighted and appreciative of your work. And so I'm glad you're here to celebrate, to be celebrated.
Yeah, you're like the rock star of the climate solutions guys. We're like a celebrity here, guys. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you, Peter.
You didn't
And
introduce yourself.
oh, and I'm Becca White and I serve Windsor County. And so speaking of Windsor, and Jim's another.
I can't, sorry. Jim National Representative from Bedfordshire and Stratford in Norwich. I serve on
And I'm Molly Burke from Brattleboro, and I have served on the Transportation Committee for 18 years, trying to cut greenhouse gas emissions from transportation. We keep trying. Yeah. So is that everybody? I think that is. Yeah, well,
Yeah, sure, and then we'll wrap up.
yeah, I think we should wrap up, give you time to get to the floor, get seated.
I wanted to ask you, in your report, I was reading it, is it Windsor County that is way at risk, the highest at risk in Vermont? I think for flooding.
Yeah.
It's Windsor, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, great, guys.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but it's true. I mean, Irene, every time it's like,
But it's glaring how high you are in terms of a percent.
So I was in UMass Amherst last week and I'm driving back up. I'm driving along 91 and I always do this when I drive. I kind of look around and see what it is. And the topography there is just wild.
yeah.
Right, the only other place that it is as wild is coming across from New York State. Like coming like along, I forget what that road is, and then coming up through.
Oh, to like Rutland?
Yes, just
Yeah.
before Rutland, even before that, the topography there, it's going like this, it's going like this, and if you have a storm system that sits in anywhere like that, and just rains itself out, now you really understand what you really have to see it. Right, you really have to see it, and you have to drive to it to go, oh, that's why I get flooded.
Upper Valley, nice. Well, thank you again.
thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Peter. Thank you, Ben. And if you want to connect with Peter and you haven't written your PUC letter, please do. And I'll send it here. So thank you.
Send it to Becca and she'll send it out.
Becca.